You are listening to Exchange by Evolution, a melting pot of ideas and inspirations shared by some of the most successful technical leaders in the APAC region. I'm Pearlie, Associate Consultant with Evolution Recruitment Solutions, and I connect businesses with top tech talents across the industry. And today, I'm your host. Just a disclaimer before we get into the discussion. All thoughts and views spoken by the speaker or myself are purely representative of each individual and not that of the company. So, welcome to another installment of our podcast. On today's podcast, we'll be discussing the topic of data product management, using data insights to drive growth. Okay, I'm delighted to be joined by our esteemed guest, Vishi, Head of Data Product Management and Platforms at Kristal.AI. Okay, so for starters, Vishi, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit to the audience?
Sure. So thanks so much, Pearlie, for inviting me here. Glad to be here. So as you said, I'm currently doing data product management and platforms at Kristal.AI. There, my role in short, which we'll talk about a bit more in our discussion, is basically looking after data as a product in the organization and serving internal and external stakeholders. Before this, I was working with PayPal in their global growth lab team, where my role was to take care of their merchant business and build data-driven strategies. I have a master's in BA and a MBA, like general management. And in my free time, I'm quite well connected across universities in India, Singapore, and US. I do a lot of guest lecturing as well as mentoring sessions for various students. So that is my way of giving it back.
That's really awesome. We need more people like you in the community.
I think there are a lot of people who are doing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Let's jump right into our podcast questions. So a lot of people don't really understand the concept of, data product management. So how does the role of, data product manager differ from other product management roles? Maybe we can start with that.
Sure. I think this is one of the most asked questions from me in last couple of months since I moved to this new role at Kristal.AI. So basically, in terms of ethos and ways of working, data product managers are quite similar to a typical general product manager. But what makes them unique is they treat data as their product. So when I say data as a product, you can broadly look it into three pillars, I would say. First would be data as a service. So it would be something like Bloomberg APIs. So if you see in market, you have a lot of roles nowadays around API product managers. So those are basically nothing but data products in the form of APIs. Second would be data as an insight. So these are basically products that are driving efficiencies within the organization. So you might be building some sort of segmentation engine or some sort of dashboard to help your business teams do their job better. So that is data as an insight. And then data as a tool to enhance customer experience would be the third pillar. There you are basically building your AI ML models to basically achieve your business goals. It could be doing cross-sell, upsell, enhancing their experience through onboarding. So kind of business goals are impacted there. So whenever we talk about data product managers, broadly I see that they are working in either one or two of these spaces in their organization. So that is the basic difference between DPM and a typical PM.
I see. And interestingly, how did you actually transition into a DPM role?
So basically, I was always involved in data. So I would say in my career, I have touched data, product marketing, these three pillars, but I was never in the formal role of a PM in past. So since this is a very new field and not many roles are there in the market, I would say even organizations are not able to find a person who is already a data PM. So they generally reach out to people who have been involved in business plus data space so that they can contribute and build products around machine learning, AI, or through BI, Tableau and all. So I think that is how I came across this opportunity as well, where our CEO was looking for someone who can treat data as a product within the organization and fuel the next phase of our growth. And it just kind of worked out in my favor.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, what a natural transition, right? Okay, so I guess What's the role of data in product development and decision making? So essentially, how do data product managers use data?
Yeah, I would say data is already quite critical for all product managers, and every product manager is expected to be well versed with data. But I would say data product managers are bound to be more hands-on with data because they work a lot not only with engineering but also with data scientists and data analysts. So they need to know how to pull data, manipulate it, and basically use it in the form of pipelines across the organization. So that way, I think the expectation in terms of being data savvy is a bit more from data product managers. Two areas where they especially excel, I would say, is data product managers are very good in prioritizing requests that come to them. So they are very, I would say, quantified in the way they go after the ideas that are there in their backlog. So they try to do some sort of business casing. Like I always try to do business casing whenever I have an idea in my backlog. I try to see what is the quantified impact or incremental lift I can drive from that idea. And apart from that, I think a lot of data product managers are also good in measurement and tracking aspects. So they are not blinded by the outcome or the output KPI. So for example, in PayPal, the outcome KPI for us was number of successful transactions. But our data product management team was always focused on granular customer journeys, like number of customers that are taking an intent towards doing a successful transaction, which is, for example, people landing on a certain page, filling up certain form, clicking on next button. So I would say, yeah, prioritizing requests as well as tracking and measurement is more rigorous for data product managers as compared to a typical PM, I would say.
I see. Okay, now we do have a better idea of how DPMs actually use data and where their focus lies. So I'm just kind of curious. What are some of the most important metrics for data PMs and why?
Yeah, so that's a great question because for DPMs the KPIs are at different levels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can imagine like if you are working on a product which is influencing customer journey, then one of your core KPI would be connected to business KPI, which could be number of successful onboarding or number of products per customer. But when you are dealing with data product which is driving efficiencies internally, then your KPI is not very much connected to business goal, although every PM would love to quantify their efforts using business KPIs. But there your KPI would be number of internal stakeholders using your data product. For example, in my case, I'm working on a segmentation engine. So my KPI is number of people who have created segment, number of active segments, or number of API calls to my segmentation engine is a successful criteria. Now I would love to know what teams use those segments for and what impact it drove as an organization. That is my secondary KPI. But for me, first would be whether my product is being used across the organization or not is the core KPI. So it depends upon where you are supporting the business. If it is external customer, it is business KPI only. If it is internal, it is more like number of people using your products.
I see. It makes sense. It depends on where this DPM sits as well, and what are their overall business goals, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And I guess what's the structure of a data product management team? Because a lot of people would be kind of curious as well.
That's a great question, Pearlie, partially because like I have worked in MNCs. I'm working in a relatively smaller organization, although I don't like to call it as a startup, but we operate in a startup model only. So I have seen that data team structure varies a lot based on the maturity of the organization. So if you look at bigger organization, you have very homogeneous teams where the people with similar skill set are part of same team and they are supporting across the organization related to requests which pertain to their skill set. But when we are working in a startup or high growth environment, it is a very heterogeneous team. And in terms of skill set, there are primarily three layers I have seen most often. One is data engineer. So these are the people who are dotted part of tech team only. They are the ones who are doing the foundational work in terms of building the pipeline that everybody else in your data team can use and do their job. So quite foundational people. Then on top of that, it comes to data modelers or data scientists. These are the people who are using those pipelines to build models and giving enhanced customer experience. And then third would be people who are business/data analysts. These are the people who are helping in terms of building the use case and measurement and tracking of your products. So primarily, I would say these three are the core skill set or team members that a typical data product team you will see, apart from product manager himself. And concentration and size of the team will of course depend on the maturity of the organization. If you are an organization who is going into data literacy more, then you will see there are more BAs and DAs. But if you are an organization who is very tech savvy, who has very clean data, then you will see that there are more data scientists there as compared to any analysts. So that is how it changed. For us, it is more like balanced. We have 2 data engineers, 1 data scientist, and 2 BAs. That is how we are kind of structured.
Yeah, your team right now at Kristal, I guess, is more lean as well, right? Yeah. Okay. Understand. That's really interesting. Give us really good insights. So, I guess what are some effective strategies used when leading and managing data product teams? Because, you are actually leading a team of diverse data professionals, right?
Correct. So Pearlie, since you are in recruitment world, I'm sure finding great talent is very important. It is hard to find a great talent, but I think the overall success of that engagement comes down to the fact once you have great talent in your organization, whether you are able to harness it for the benefit of your team as well as organization. And to be honest, to be frank, I have learned it in a hard way. So I have had some experiences where I realized, okay, I could have done this thing differently or that thing differently. So one thing that I would definitely say that whenever you are working with any data team and especially data product managers or data product team, since data is so critical in every organization, a lot of times we get pulled into various conversations where sometimes we are not even needed. And everybody wants our time and they say that, okay, this is super critical. Why don't we do this using data, do that using data? So it is very important as a leader that you are able to point your team in right direction or right problem to focus on. Not everything is important. If you do some rigorous prioritization, you will see there are only one, maybe P0, and then several P1s that you need to take care at a point of time. So I think having that focus is very important because a lot of these data projects, even before they start, requires a lot of groundwork in terms of cleaning, identifying opportunity, doing business casing. So I think that is my kind of learning, that always very focused in terms of prioritizing and pointing the team in the right direction or right problem to solve for. And apart from that, I think there are few nuances that need to keep in mind. I would say is getting agreement on something like a baseline approach. Like when you are solving a data problem, there are various ways of solving it: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, business rules. So just get that baseline agreement right up front, that this is how we are approaching, why we are approaching, and why we are not taking any other route. Because down the line, sometimes conversations get very I would say diluted because everybody has their own thought about solving a problem. So that is where PM's role come, like they are able to document everything and keep it streamlined. So I think these two for me are kind of learnings that I would say that we need to keep in mind while leading any data team.
I see. Yeah, that's really insightful. I mean, it's really important to align in terms of like the baseline approach, right? Yeah, so that you guys are actually moving in the same direction.
Exactly. And a lot of times, even your tech team might say that, why don't we try this or that? It is very important for you to say that, no, let's just go ahead with what we decided. And in our buffer time, maybe we cannot try something else, because with data, sometimes people get excited and they get into directions which they are not supposed to. So
yeah.
Just keeping it focused.
Getting like sidetracked here and there,
yes,
right?
Let's get excited.
Yeah, I see. Okay. I guess, in terms of future of data and its impact on PM, and what do you think are some of the emerging trends in this field?
So when I look at market like all the SVB and Credit Suisse thing,
Yes.
I think trend wise, I would definitely say that I think a lot of us, a lot of tech companies are under a lot of pressure regarding funding and just proving their worth. So I think when I talk to my colleagues in other organizations, even the big ones, they are under severe pressure to prove their worth, where they have spent their time, where resources have went, and what is the outcome. So I see a lot more people are now moving towards these tools like Amplitude, Mixpanel, which are about customer behavioral tracking on the platform to justify the effort. So I think the usage of such tools is going to increase, I would say, just to justify what we are doing. That is definitely one thing I would say is making a significant impact. Other than that, I would say a lot of people like talk about data democracy, like it should be accessible to everyone and it should be self-served. Now, while doing that, I have noticed that a lot of, especially organizations in hyper growth, they are not able to put in right checks and balances in terms of accessing that data. So a lot of times we see that data can be abused, or there is an opportunity to abuse data. If you look at the number of data breaches, actually it has increased in last year compared to the years before. And that is because a lot of these organizations grew so fast that they were not able to control the usage of data. And that is where I feel a lot of new startups are coming in, which are giving some solutions about managing the security and privacy of your data in a very agile format, and not that traditional role-based hierarchy model, which is very hard to maintain. So I think these two things personally, I feel are going to be quite big in next 1 or 2 years, especially for startups and fast-growing organizations.
I couldn't agree more with you. I've seen a rising trend in the focus on data governance and data observability.
Oh, yes.
Yes, because people, want to, or rather organizations would want to keep their data in check as well.
Exactly, and having proper audit trails in place, lineages in place, helps in, even if things go wrong, at least you know where it went wrong and probably who is the culprit. I don't know. But yeah, so those are the other things I would say.
Okay. So I guess, one last question for you, maybe from like a job seekers kind of standpoint, if someone were to move into a DPM role, what are some of the advice that you would kind of give to this group of people? Because obviously, this role is, I would say, pretty niche and it's not that common at the moment. So what would be some of your career advice?
Yeah, I would say definitely, as this role has data in its name, you should be ideally in a field which is very data centric. Either you are a data scientist, maybe a data engineer, or probably if you are a data analyst or business analyst, that is even better, because you have that business exposure behind you. You can take some learnings from there. So I think that is first and foremost, your comfort with data. Second would be, I think customer empathy is super important. Although you are dealing with data, but at the end of the day, you have some customers, either internal or external. So you should be super comfortable in talking to your stakeholders internally and even your customers, and understand what kind of problems they are facing and see how your data can help in solving those problems. I think as long as these two things are sorted, I would say everything else will fall in place if you're looking for a role in this space.
Okay, so all you guys out there looking to transition into a DPM role, this is really golden advice. All right, we'll leave it here as it is today. That's all the time that we have. And once again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Vishi for your contributions and insights.
No problem. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this chat. And to our listeners out there, thank you everyone for listening. And I'll see you guys next time. All right, goodbye.